welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shuja, and these are the headlines. At least 80 people have been injured after Israeli forces cracked down on Palestinians protesting forced evictions in occupied East Jerusalem. The latest violence comes a day after Israeli police stormed Al-Aqsa Mosque and injured over 200 Palestinians. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has condemned the Israeli attack on Palestinians and urged the international community to protect their rights. President Vladimir Putin says Russia will uphold international law, but at the same time will firmly defend the national interests. Putin said this after reviewing the country's traditional World War II victory parade in Moscow amid soaring tensions with the West. The parade featured over 12,000 troops, intercontinental ballistic missile launchers, and a flypast by nearly 80 military craft. Iran's President Hassan Rouhani says a deal has been reached with the world powers to lift main sanctions on Tehran. Iranian state media quoted Rouhani as saying that the U.S. and the Europeans have agreed to return to the 2015 nuclear deal during the Vienna talks. President Rouhani added that only the details remain to be agreed on. However, there is no immediate confirmation from the U.S. or other parties to the accord. India has registered over 4,000 COVID-19 deaths in the past 24 hours and more than 400,000 cases for the fourth consecutive day. Meanwhile, South Africa has detected the first 4 cases of the coronavirus variant that emerged in India. In Pakistan, 118 people lost their lives to the virus and nearly 3,800 tested positive in the past 24 hours. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.2 million lives and infected over 157 million people. And in cricket, Zimbabwe have begun their second innings on day 3 of the final test match against Pakistan in Harare. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. At least 80 people have been injured after Israeli forces cracked down on Palestinians protesting forced evictions in occupied East Jerusalem. Tensions have mounted in the city amid growing anger over the eviction of Palestinians from their homes in Jerusalem. The latest violence comes a day after Israeli police stormed Al-Aqsa Mosque and injured over 200 Palestinians. The international community, including the U.S. and Russia, have urged Israel to exercise restraint. Meanwhile, Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has condemned the Israeli attack on Palestinians and urged the international community to protect their rights. Iran's President Hassan Rouhani says a deal has been reached with the world powers to lift main sanctions on Tehran. Iranian state media quoted Rouhani as saying that the U.S. and Europeans have agreed to return to the 2015 nuclear deal during Vienna talks. President Rouhani added that only the details remain to be agreed upon. However, there is no immediate confirmation from the U.S. or other parties to the accord. Earlier in a tweet, Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif said the U.S. has an obligation to help revive the nuclear pact. Zarif noted that the crisis was started by Washington with its withdrawal from the nuclear deal 3 years ago. President Vladimir Putin says Russia will uphold international law, but at the same time will firmly defend the national interests. Putin said this after reviewing the country's traditional World War II victory parade in Moscow. The parade featured over 12,000 troops, intercontinental ballistic missile launchers, and a flypast by nearly 80 military aircrafts. Following the parade, Putin and his Tajik counterpart paid tribute to the victims of war at a memorial by the Kremlin. This year's parade precedes parliamentary polls in September and comes at a time when Russia's ties with the West are strained over the hosts of issues. The death toll from a car bomb explosion outside a school in Afghanistan's capital, Kabul, has risen to 58. Interior Ministry spokesperson Tariq Aryan said the death toll may increase further. Medics say at least 150 people were injured in the attack. President Ashraf Ghani blamed the attack on the Taliban. However, a Taliban spokesperson denied involvement, saying the group condemns any attack on Afghan civilians. Meanwhile, Pakistan has strongly condemned the attack and killing of civilians. In a tweet, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi expressed solidarity with Afghans in their fight against terrorism. The Afghan foreign minister and prosecutors from the International Criminal Court have met in The Hague to discuss war crimes probe in Afghanistan. The ICC is investigating alleged crimes against humanity in Afghanistan since 2003 by all sides in the conflict. Last year, the Afghan government said it is conducting its own probe and asked the ICC to defer its investigation. Under the ICC rules, the court can only prosecute crimes committed on the territory of member states when they are unable to do so themselves. Afghanistan's Attorney General Zabiullah Karimullah said prosecutors had discussed information sharing and cooperation. In a statement, ICC prosecutor Fatou Bensouda said she will continue to work with the Afghan government on serving justice. India has registered over 4,000 COVID-19 deaths in the past 24 hours and more than 400,000 cases for the fourth consecutive day. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.2 million lives and infected over 157 million people. More in this report.
The coronavirus pandemic situation remains most perilous in the South Asian region. As the crisis continues to worsen, India has received more ventilators and vials of drug remdesivir from Canada, Austria and the Czech Republic. Meanwhile, South Africa has detected the first 4 cases of the coronavirus variant that emerged in India. The latest research shows that UK variant and the Maharashtra double mutant strains are behind the exponential surges in the tech hub of Bengaluru. Amid spiking deaths, a number of southern states of India has imposed strict lockdowns.
He was my relative and his name was Vijay Kumar Jaipal. He was coronavirus positive for the last 10 days and was admitted to a private hospital. Last evening he got a bed in civil hospital here. He was 35 years old and has 2 young children and he passed away this morning. His children are very young and his wife is hardly 32 years old. May no one face such a tragedy ever.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi called on the EU to support the proposal by India and South Africa to waive patents on COVID-19 vaccines. Pope Francis has also backed the US proposal to waive intellectual property rights for vaccines. But CEO of the drug maker Pfizer says the proposed waiver would disrupt progress made so far in boosting vaccine supplies. German Chancellor Angela Merkel also opposed waiving patents, saying it could jeopardize the quality of shots.
I made it clear that I do not believe that giving away patents is the solution to make vaccine available to more people. I believe that we need the creativity and innovation of those firms, and that is why I believe in a patent protection.
In the US, declining demand for vaccines is causing states to refuse their full allocations of doses from the federal government. Meanwhile, in Australia, New South Wales extended social distancing and mask-wearing rules by a week as authorities hunted for the source of a small outbreak.
In Pakistan, 118 more people have died from COVID-19 overnight. The Health Ministry says the death count has reached 18,915. The ministry said more than 3,700 people tested positive in the past 24 hours. It said the caseload has crossed 858,000, out of which over 757,000 have recovered. The number of active cases in the country is approaching 82,000. Earlier, Pakistan received more than 1 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine under the COVAX program. Arab coalition in Yemen says it has destroyed an explosive laden drone launched by the Houthis towards Saudi Arabia. In a statement, a coalition spokesperson said the drone was aimed at the Khamis Mushahid city, but the Houthis claimed they successfully hit King Khalid Air Base in the Saudi city. Rebels have escalated regular cross-border attacks on Saudi Arabia and a ground offensive in Yemen's Marib region. In Myanmar, the anti-coup protesters have continued their protests in the country. In Mandalay, members of student unions from universities took to the streets to protest against the junta. Myanmar military rulers have also branded the rival National Unity government as a terrorist group, blaming it for bombings and killings. Bombings are reported daily, and local militias have been formed to confront the army. Earlier this week, the National Unity government announced that it will set up a People's Defense Force. The junta said the Unity government and the new force would now be covered by the anti-terrorism law. According to an activist group, security forces have killed at least 776 civilians so far and detained nearly 4,000. At least 15 people have died after a landslide at an artisanal gold mine in Guinea's northeast Siguri region. Initial reports suggest a rock overhang collapsed near the village of Takakuru. A Red Cross official says 2 people have been rescued by the volunteers, while others are still trapped under the debris. The latest incident adds to the series of accidents at artisanal mines in recent years, particularly near the border with Mali. Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko has signed a decree on the transfer of presidential powers. Under the decree, the presidential powers could be transferred to the country's Security Council if he is killed or unable to perform his duties. It allows the Security Council to impose a state of emergency or a martial law in the country. The Presidential Press Service said the decree was introduced to preserve the country's independence and sovereignty. Earlier, the power of the president were directly transferred to the Prime Minister of Belarus. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. The U.S. Navy claims it has seized an illicit shipment of weapons in the international waters of the northern Arabian Sea. In a statement, the Bahrain-based Fifth Fleet said the shipment contains Russian and Chinese-made weapons. It said the cache included anti-tank guided missiles, assault rifles, PKM machine guns, and rocket-propelled grenades launchers. The fleet said modern telescopic sights were also found on board. The statement read the original source and intended destination of the material is under investigation. In Scotland, pro-independence parties have won a majority of the seats in the parliamentary elections. In a statement, First Minister Nicola Sturgeon said she will press ahead with plans for a new referendum on leaving the UK. Sturgeon said it will be absurd and outrageous if London tries to ignore the democratic will of the people. Her Scottish National Party has returned for a 4th consecutive term in the office. Meanwhile, Irish Sinn Féin Party said a victory by pro-independence parties in Scotland is sufficient and significant for the campaign for the Irish unit. Nationalist Party leader Mary Lou McDonnell said the results show that politics in the UK is undergoing fundamental change. The election's results set the scene for a bitter clash with London as Prime Minister Boris Johnson has dismissed the possibility of a referendum. In the UK, Labour Party's Sadiq Khan has been re-elected as the Mayor of London. Khan saw off his main challenger, Sean Bailey, who is the candidate from Prime Minister Boris Johnson's Conservative Party. He won by 55.2% to Bailey's 44.8%. Speaking at City Hall, Khan promised to strain every sinew to help build a better, brighter future for London. He said the results of the elections around the UK show the country remains deeply divided and the scars of Brexit have yet to heal. Khan said had focused his campaign on creating jobs and boosting London's tourism economy. China says debris from its rocket that was hurtling back towards Earth has disintegrated over the Indian Ocean. It has finally ended days of speculation over where the debris would hit. China's state-run media said parts of the Long March 5B's debris landed at a point west of the Maldives, but China's space agency said most of it was burnt up in the atmosphere. The main segment from the vehicle was used to launch the first module of China's new space station last month. The world is celebrating Mother's Day today with a special which honors the motherhood and maternal bonds in our life. The day is celebrated on the second Sunday of May every year since the early 20th century.
The modern holiday began in the United States at the initiative of Anna Jarvis. She wished to honor her late mother, Anne Rees Jarvis, who was a peace activist. Anna had a memorial for her mother at St. Andrew's Methodist Church in West Virginia, which is now the International Mother's Day Shrine. Jarvis believed that a mother is the person who has done more for you than anyone in the world. On the occasion, the United Nations paid salutations to moms around the world for braving the COVID-19 pandemic despite all challenges. Here in Pakistan, President Arif Alvi has promulgated an ordinance for the protection of parents. Under the ordinance, forcibly evicting parents will be a punishable offense. Meanwhile, Chinese President Xi Jinping remembered his mother's inedible words that family is people's first classroom and parents are children's first teachers. Xi Jinping is a member of the Communist Party of China as well as an exemplar model of the Chinese president. However, the day is marked differently in different countries around the world. In the UK, it is celebrated on the fourth Sunday of March to honor the Mother Church on Christian Mothering Sunday. As for the Greeks, they celebrate the festival on February.
From jumping off choppers to parkour, the male-dominated world of stunts is attracting an increasing number of women in France. In a school in northern France, nearly a third of the student body is now made up of women. More in this report.
Women who once worked as makeup artists or dancers are now aspiring to join the challenging world of stunts. 29-year-old Valeriana Michelani says she wants to show that women can perform wall flips just as well as men.
I am a dancer and a show performer, so I'm used to thriving in a graceful and feminine world. And now I'm in quite the opposite. I'm quite masculine and like brawls.
Professional training in the school takes 2 years, with 10 training periods that encompass acrobatics, parkour, and combats. In total, students need 800 hours of training to graduate.
Each time we take in 14 newcomers in each training period. There are around 7 women each time. It's the spirit of diversity almost each time, and all the better. It's good for the campus spirit. It's good for diversity, it's good for the job market, and it adds a touch of girly tenderness.
In the past, finding stunt women for films and shows were a hard task. But with the film industry's growing appetite for female superheroes, demand for women stunt performance has increased. Several students of the French school have ended up working in action films as well as live shows.
In cricket, Zimbabwe are off to a shaky start in their second innings after being asked to follow on by Pakistan in the second test in Harare. The hosts managed only 132 runs in the first innings in reply of Pakistan's massive total of 510 runs. Hassan Ali was the pick of the bowlers for his 5 wickets, while Sajid Khan took 2 wickets for Pakistan. In football, Bayern Munich have secured their 9th straight Bundesliga title after RB Leipzig lost to Borussia Dortmund. Their title was confirmed hours ahead of their face-off with Borussia Mönchengladbach.
Bayern later celebrated their triumph with a 6-0 demolition of the Gladbach with a hat-trick from Robert Lewandowski. In Spanish La Liga, Atletico Madrid have played a goalless draw against Barcelona at Camp Nou. The draw means Atletico is still on top of the table, 2 points clear of Barcelona. Meanwhile, Liverpool defeated Southampton 2-0 to ascend to 6th place in the Premier League. In another fixture, Chelsea beat Manchester City 2-1 in an entertaining contest at the Etihad Stadium. Elsewhere, Leeds United bested Tottenham 3-1, whereas Crystal Palace downed Sheffield United 2-0.
In National Basketball Association, Washington Wizards have overcome a 12-point deficit to edge Indiana Pacers 133-132 in Indianapolis.
Russell Westbrook recorded his 181st career triple-double, tying Oscar Robertson's all-time NBA record. Westbrook finished with 33 points, 19 rebounds and 15 assists. Bradley Beal also added 50 points for the Wizards, who have now climbed to 9th place in the Eastern Conference. Meanwhile, Golden State Warriors beat Oklahoma City Thunder 136-97 in San Francisco. Stephen Curry scored 49 points for Warriors, who handed 6th straight defeat to Oklahoma. In other fixtures, Utah Jazz defeat the visiting Houston Rockets 124-116. While Brooklyn Nets down the Denver Nuggets 125-119.
In boxing, Saul Canelo Alvarez stopped Britain's Billy Joe Saunders in their super middleweight bout after a via technical knockout. The Mexican star ununified with the WBC, WBA, and WBO super middleweight titles. Alvarez stopped Saunders in round 8 with a right uppercut that swelled and appeared to damage the right eye of the Briton. The fight was stopped by the referee before the start of round 9 after Saunders failed to rise from his stool. He was then taken to the hospital with a suspected fracture in his right eye socket. With over 73,000 fans at the AT&T Stadium in Texas, it was the biggest crowd ever at an indoor boxing venue in the U.S. It's now time to take a look at the weather updates from around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at Indus.News.